Yeah, okay. So let's talk about what's called the trig word problems. Basically, the good thing about all of this is that all of these word problems will make a right triangle. Right triangle, 90-degree angle. So you're going to use Sokotoa on every single one. The bad, nothing. These are fun. Do not complain. Literally, just draw a right triangle and then use Sokotoa every single time. Things to know. Angle of elevation means the angle's going upwards. Elevate, up, like elevator, going up, right? Angle of depression, that means it's going down. You know, if you're feeling depressed, you say, I'm feeling down today. So if it says angle of depression, you know it's going downwards. Um, this is the very, very important part about these though. You're always going to start with a horizontal line, you know, straight like this. I like to think of it as eye level. So it's a lot easier when you're seeing me here in person, right? But if I'm walking, normally I'm just looking straight ahead and it's okay. And then I will elevate, meaning I point upwards, looking up. And then looking downwards, my head goes down and now I've got an angle of depression. So always start with a horizontal line every single time. So just as a note, if I say something about the angle of elevation, you'll know it's going to be a normal triangle, hypotenuse going upwards. Angle of depression, straight line, and then a hypotenuse going downwards. So it's just an upside down version, basically, of what we have. And now this is the part that people would mess up on the most. This is a no. So the biggest mistake that people will make is that when they do the angle of depression, they do not start with that horizontal line. They're just drawing an angle going straight downwards. That is a big no. Always start with horizontal line. Your answer should always look like either A or B. Okay? So, quick note. If you're drawing an angle of elevation or an angle of depression, sometimes people like to think of it this way instead, but if you complete the rectangle, every angle of elevation has a congruent, which you should remember means the same, angle of depression. So basically what I'm saying is, if I draw an angle of depression and for some reason I do not like having an upside down triangle, I could just as easily boom, boom, boom. I need a bigger brush. I could just as easily just draw a rectangle, right? And then say if this was 30 degrees, I'd be like, oh, well, now this is 30 degrees. Da. Boom, boom, boom. Whoa. I accidentally made everything visible just by going backwards. Okay, first question. Joseph's measuring a statue of Drew Evans. He is 50 feet away and measures the angle of elevation with the ground to the top of the statue to be 77 degrees. How tall is the statue? So, draw the triangle, then use Sokoto and solve. So, this is how tall the statue is. We don't know what it is, so we call it X. When we are saying something is far away from the ground, you're always measuring there. So now we've got to use Sokotoa right now. So, basically, from this angle right here, which is 77 degrees, because that's what we said there, this is O, and this is A. Why am I using gray? Gray is an annoying, ugly color. Boom. Anyway, So now we know OA, we know it's going to be tangent. Tangent of angle 77 degrees equals O, which is x, over A, which is 50. Multiply both sides by 50, and we're going to get our answer 50 tan 77, which equals to x, which equals to 216.6 degrees. Not degrees, feet tall. Correct? So, second question, of which I apparently also forgot to get rid of. Mrs. Lake is in a tree, looking down at Mr. Horan, who some of you don't know who that is because he does not work anymore, who's lying on the ground, with an angle of depression of 29 degrees. She is 70 feet away from him diagonally. How far up is she? Draw the picture. Basically, this is Mrs. Lake. This is the tree right here. She's looking straight, downwards, angle of depression of 29 degrees. We want to know how tall the tree is. So, which is this line technically right here, which is the same as the sun on the other side. And then I said diagonally, so that means it's this one. From this angle, we know x is opposite, and 70 is across on the right angle. So it's the hypotenuse. So, SOHCAHTOA OH is sine. Sine 29 equals x over 70. Multiply both sides by 70. We get 70 sine 29 equals 33.9 feet. So draw the triangle, SOHCAHTOA, and you are done. Lastly, Kral is measuring a flying tea saucer in the air. He uses an angle measurer with his arm. The angle of elevation is 64 degrees. He knows he is horizontally 150 feet away. If his shoulder is 4 feet above the ground, how far up is a saucer? So what I mean by an angle measure, and I forgot to bring it home today, but it's basically like if you had a protractor, right? And you're measuring, and you're like, oh look, that is, what did I say, 64 degrees. And so the problem is, your triangle is starting at the shoulder, not at your feet. So you've got to do some manipulation, but not really too much. It's not going to be too bad. So, 64 degrees. And like I said, 150 feet away horizontally, and we're trying to know how tall it is. That's what the x is there. So, what you've got to do is draw Mr. Kral. His shoulder is plus 4. Because he's 4 feet up, which means this is 4 feet up. Basically what is happening is our triangle is floating in the air, and so we've got to add plus 4 at the very end to get to the ground, because this is the ground, this is the flying saucer up here. So when I talk about shoulders and stuff like that, that means you've got to add at the end, because we're measuring up in the air and not from the ground. This is opposite to the 64, and this is adjacent because it is not the hypotenuse and it is next to it. SOHCAHTOA OA T is tangent. We got tangent to 64 equals x over 150. Multiply both sides by 150. 150 tangent 64 equals to 207.55. But then we've got to add that plus 4 to get 311.55, and you are done. I'm pretty sure this was the most annoying of all my note videos so far. I'll be kinda curious to see how many of you actually listened to it the whole way. To be honest, I was trying to start with like an Eastern European / maybe Russian accent. I don't actually know what this is now. It does not sound the way that I wanted it to sound. But that is Trig word problems. So like I said, the big thing is that you're always going to make a triangle. You're always going to use SOHCAHTOA. Just make sure, start with horizontal line, and then you label.